Hey everyone. So I hope you can hear me. I'm having to talk kind of quiet. And I'm in the basement, like the back part of the basement, so that people cannot hear me talking. So anyway, um, I'm going to talk to you about something that's kind of personal. Well, actually, it's extremely personal. Um, so yeah, my mental illness issues. So anyway, I'm just going to tell you what it is right off the bat that I have is bipolar disorder. Bipolar 1, I think, is what it's called. So, anyhow, I'm just going to tell you, like, my history and things that led up to what's going on most recently and the whole shebang, so to speak. So, anyhow, uh, when I was really young, I mean as young as like preschool, I can remember being completely exhausted. I mean, I was either at one extreme or the other. I was either full of energy and bouncing off the fucking walls, or I was curled up in a ball, crying, exhausted, wishing I could die. And, just feeling overwhelmed. I mean, at a really young age, I remember being overwhelmed by things like lights and sound and people talking to me and asking me questions. I had social anxiety pretty young too. I was afraid to do a lot of things that the other kids were doing for fear of being criticized. So, and also I was daydreaming quite a bit. I was constantly looking out the window. And so, and by the way, this does run in my family. I'm not the only one. So don't try to tell me it's environmental and that I need to just stop masking my feelings. You're an asshole. Fuck you. Anyway, by the time I was in the first grade, my mom kind of caught on that maybe I had ADD or ADHD or something. So she took me to the doctor, and they diagnosed me with ADD and put me on Ritalin, which I was thankful for, actually, because, in retrospect, I'm thankful they did that because, honestly, like when I got on the Ritalin, like I stopped flunking all my quizzes and stuff in class. I started doing much better, making better grades and stuff, and I was able to concentrate and do my work. And I was able to concentrate and take tests, and I was able to actually do well in school. And I actually developed like a little bit of pride. Like I actually felt good about the fact that I was doing okay in school and doing well. And so I had that, I always had that. But the thing was, I always felt like I was different from the other kids. And they felt like I was different too, and they let me know it. Um, they let me know it in some pretty horrible and unsavory ways. I mean, I don't just mean like name calling or exclusion. I mean other forms of bullying, other forms of direct abuse. I also got it from adults too. Parents of other kids at school didn't like me. I even had a few teachers off and on throughout the years that would treat me, just treat me as if, I just was this major defect, as if I was ass cancer. Just, I got treated horribly by a lot of people growing up, and I think that did impact me quite a bit. But I can remember many episodes where I'd be at school and just have that feeling, wishing I could die, or wishing I could just jump up out of my desk and just run and take off and go play on the playground because I was so full of energy. So there's that. And I had migraine headaches all throughout school too. The fluorescent lights were horrible. I remember sitting at my desk sometimes, and I would just put my head down. I would just put my head down like that. And I would rush through my work actually so I could put my head down. I would rush through tests and quizzes so I could put my head down and not have to see the lights or hear the sounds that the other kids were making. Everything from like a kid like strumming their fingers on their desk to like twitching their ankle and thumping their ankle up against the side of their desk, or like someone like strumming or flipping their notebook paper, like you do like a deck of cards. The sound of someone tapping a pencil on their desk. Other kids making mouth noises. My brain really cannot ignore anything. The way my brain works is I pick up on every little thing around me. I hear strange noises all the time. I hear every little word that's said around the house. and it gets very overwhelming. It makes you tired. It makes you very tired to not be able to turn off this like hypersensitivity and this high-powered hearing and high-powered sense of smell. I have this weird thing where I can smell smells constantly. Like if someone walks past me and they've washed their hair with something coconut scented, I can smell it. And I don't just mean like on the level that everybody else can smell it. I mean it can be very powerful and overwhelming to me, to the point where it makes me nauseous, to the point where it makes my eyes water even sometimes. And if someone's wearing strong perfume, or they're just wearing perfume period, and they're 20 feet away from me, like I can feel it like on my tongue. Like, you know how when you smell something strong, you can detect it on your tongue? You'd get that prickly alcohol feeling on your tongue. I get that just from someone wearing perfume, like in the next room or just 10 feet away. I mean, it's crazy. And it makes for a lot of stress and exhaustion, like I said. And so, fast forward a little bit, to when I was in high school, same deal. Sensitivity to light and sound. I'd rush through tests. I'd rush through, quizzes really fast so that I could put my head down and just kind of ignore what was going on around me. I didn't socialize much. I didn't have a lot of friends in high school. Just because people talking to me and asking questions and wanting, and like talking to me would make me very self-conscious. And I constantly felt as though I was being looked over, like I was being criticized, like I was being judged. And I constantly would wonder, like, what the other kids were talking about or doing, but I didn't actually want to engage in what they were doing, which made me very awkward. I was extremely awkward. I had very few friends. I had, like, one friend, maybe, I can't remember. I can't even remember. In fact, most of the people I went to high school with, I barely talked to. So, and the ones who were fond of me and the ones who did want to talk to me, I probably hurt them a great deal because I never wanted to talk to them. I didn't want to socialize much. And the ones I did want to talk to and socialize, they probably thought I was a weirdo because simply I had already been labeled a weirdo anyway. So, I mean, they were like, who wants that girl talking to them? Sort of like that. I was kind of an outcast, so to speak. And right after I graduated from high school, I stopped taking my Ritalin. And that's when a lot of trouble started. My life took a huge turn. I started doing things on impulse. I started doing things negligently and carelessly. I was constantly hopping from one job to another. I was awake all night and asleep during the day. I ate like crazy. I wanted to eat constantly, actually. I gained a lot of weight in my early 20s, like a lot of weight. I mainly just remember, like, the constant, like, spur-of-the-moment decisions that led to bad things happening later. I was constantly in financial trouble. And also, I think what also plays a role in this is the people that I chose to have romantic relationships with. Like my daughter's dad, at the time, he was very irresponsible and very selfish. And he would kind of go along with whatever irresponsible, impulsive thing I came up with to do. And I would go along with whatever he wanted to do that was impulsive and irresponsible. So there's that. And then, I kind of matured a little bit in my mid-20s after I broke up with him. And then I got with my most recent ex, who basically, I don't want to speak ill of the guy because, I mean, honestly, I just kind of want me talking about him to be done. I hate to raise the dead, so to speak. But being with him, I just kind of became so complacent. I just kind of did whatever he wanted to do. And everything I tried to do, everything I tried to plan, he just kind of would give me the yes dear treatment. And, I just kind of felt like as though I was in like this daze. And he would gaslight me. And honestly, he managed to convince me that all the problems were mine. That I was completely batshit crazy, which I am crazy, but not as crazy as he would make me out to be. Like, if bills weren't getting paid, and I caught him spending money on comic books, he would act as though he deserved to be able to spend the money on comic books, and that only a crazy person is that obsessive over the lights being kept on. I mean, it was that petty. So, and the fact that I am, actually crazy made it easier for him to gaslight me. And it made it easier for him to manipulate me. And so, 8 years of my life I wasted with him. 8 years. And actually, right towards the very end, I reached a point I guess, where I wanted to kill myself. And I remember I had suicidal thoughts ever since I was a very small child. I mean, as a child, I was very aware of the concept of death. I was aware of the finality of death. I mean, I had suicidal thoughts ever since I was a young child. There were many instances where I would get either that overwhelmed feeling from lots of social anxiety, lots of environmental stuff bothering me, and I remember I would just think to myself, I wish I could die, I wish I was dead so I wouldn't have to deal with any of this. And so, of course, I carried those feelings with me on into adulthood, and it morphed. It turned into, bad situations, or situations where I was like really, really felt threatened, whether it was financial struggles or something to do with one of my relationships or something like that, where I felt wronged or I just would feel like, my life was so shitty, or like I was unwelcome in my own life, if that makes sense. And I would want to kill myself. And I would think about it, but never acted on it. But anyway, wind the clock forward from my 20s on to, I think I was 30. Yeah, I think I was 30 years old. Me and my ex had moved into this house, and we were supposed to be sharing it with someone. At the last second, the other person who was supposed to be sharing the house with us pulled out. This bitch lied and said that her sister had cancer. I have to go to Florida to live with my sister because she has cancer. I found out from our landlord that actually what was really going on was that her father owned rental property in Florida and was going to let her live there for free. And she and her boyfriend were going to gallivant off to Florida and leave us fucked over in this house. It was her, the whole thing was her idea. Let's rent a house together. It was her fucking idea. And so that had happened, and we were having a hard time finding a replacement roommate. We had a cat that had been injured, and we could not afford the surgery she needed. I mean, we did eventually, and everything was fine. But, let's see, what else? My car needed repairs. There was all this stuff that we needed to be able to pay for. Now, when at the time my ex was not working, which was not unusual, he would quit and hop from job to job to job. And he always had these ridiculous pussy-ass excuses for quitting his jobs, too. Like, well, some manager didn't like me, or I wasn't getting along with someone. It's because he was a wimp. Mainly, it was because he was a wimp, and because he expected everything to revolve around him. He expected everyone to kiss his feet and just... I don't know what his problem was. He had very distorted expectations of everyone around him. And the excuse is always the same. They were making me work too hard. I was having to work too many hours. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, bitch, you work 12 to 4:30. Give me a fucking break. So he had quit another job. And so we were basically desperate. I was the one working, paying the bills, and it wasn't cutting it. And I just finally realized, like, it got to a point where my suicidal feelings were coming back, and to me, it was a horrible, desperate situation, and in my mind, that was how I had always ever felt. And every time I had wanted to kill myself, or had wanted to die before, in my mind, that was how I had always ever felt. How the world had always done nothing but fucked me over. And I felt very unwelcome in my own life, like I said, and very unwelcome in general. I just wanted the suffering to stop, I wanted the pain to stop. And in my mind, that, window between world of living and the world of the dead, being dead, it's like, I can stay with the living. And it's like staying in a burning building. But you know what? I can jump from the burning building and save myself the suffering. That's how I saw it. I can either stay here and burn, or I can jump out and spare myself the suffering. That's how I saw it. And one night, I finally decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I decided I was going to do it, and we finally did find a roommate who trusted me and trusted him. And anyway, so I went upstairs. She was not home. The roommate was not home. She had gone off with some friends. She was gone for the whole freaking night. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning as though I was getting ready for work. And I went upstairs, I went into her room, and I was going to take her medication. This girl trusted me, and I was about to betray her. That's how desperate and that's how selfish my thinking was at that time. That's how determined I was to go through with this. I didn't care about the aftermath. I wanted the suffering and the pain to be gone. And also, I was having marital problems as well, as you can imagine. I was going to take every single pill in the house. I was going to lay down in some hot water in the bathtub and just drift off to sleep and let myself slip down under the water and drown, pretty much, is what I was going to do. So I went into her room, and I was going into the bedrooms looking for medications and pills. I was in the bathroom looking for pills, and I was going to set them all out on the dining room table. And I was going to take them all. So I decided to go ahead and start running the bath water. So I rinsed the bathtub. I think there's an animal living just outside the bricks over there, outside the house. But anyway, that's why I turned my head. I heard a noise. But anyway, I decided to, run the bath water, so I did. And it was getting kind of full, and I realized it was too hot, so I thought, okay, now's a good time to take the pills. By the time I'm done, it'll be cooled down enough. So I started pouring out all the pills on the table. And when I was getting up, I had to get up to go check the bath water. I got up and I scooted the chair out from under me. And I guess my ex-husband heard me scoot the chair out because he came upstairs and realized what was going on and stopped me. And he called my parents, and of course by now it's like 4:45, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. Called my parents, and he basically convinced me to drive myself to the local crazy house, which I did. And honestly, that place was a fucking nightmare. The other patients there were brutally hostile. The staff was uncaring. It was cold in there. I mean, all over the hallways, the rooms, the common room, it was cold. The TV was always blaring, even in the middle of the fucking night. That they would not turn the TV down. Patients were basically locked in their rooms sometimes. Some of them needed to be. I, on the other hand, did not. They put me on all these medications that made me vomit and that made me basically be knocked out and drowsy and subdued all the time. I remember crawling on my hands and knees through the hallway, begging for someone to bring me something to puke in. And I remember, it felt like I was, laying on the ground forever, and there were other patients standing around staring at me. And someone finally came and got me. I can't remember what happened after that. I just remember being picked up by at least 2 of the orderlies and carried away somewhere. But I can't remember where. That's how drugged up I was. I couldn't remember anything. The counseling I got there was really shitty. And so basically I figured out that the only way I was going to get out of that place was if I told the doctor what he wanted to hear, which was, I'm great, the medication's working, I feel so good, I'm ready to go home. And just like that, without a second thought, just like that, he let me go home. He did not bother to evaluate me any further. It didn't even cross his mind that I was full of shit. They just want to get patients in and out. And that needs to be fixed. The institution of, nut houses and crazy houses or whatever, or mental institutions, that's a big problem. That's why so many people wind up right back in them. It's because they're diagnosed incorrectly. They're medicated, they're miserable, so they lie to get out. They get out, they start having their problems again, and they come right back in. They never get a proper diagnosis, and they never get proper help. And so, anyway, after I got out, I went to my family doctor. And also, my ex wouldn't touch me. After I got out, he would not hardly look at me. He would not come in physical contact with me at all whatsoever. No hugs, no kisses, no nothing. He wouldn't touch me. And so I went to my family doctor, and he prescribed some medication for me, which I started taking, and all of a sudden I had this clarity, and I realized how shitty my marriage was, and I broke up with my ex, and that's kind of, that's where that ends, pretty much. Wind the clock forward to now. Now, I've actually been properly evaluated. I've gone for testing, actually multiple tests, actually, by more than one doctor. I have more than one doctor prescribing to me, and they both communicate with one another, so it's not like I can go to one and ask for pills and then, you know what I'm saying? No funny business. So, so yeah, actually things are going very good for me right now. I have not had suicidal thoughts probably in 5 months, 4 months, maybe, since, oh gosh, probably since November. Yeah. And so, but the thing about bipolar disorder is it's not just this Jekyll and Hyde thing. People don't understand that. It's not just this Jekyll and Hyde thing. It's people with bipolar disorder have normal emotional responses, as in things that would make anyone angry makes them angry, things that would make anyone upset make them upset, things that would make anyone happy makes them happy. But when they get that happy or that upset, when they get that first little edge of emotion, it's like opening a floodgate. All of a sudden, all these emotions will come pouring out. And people with bipolar disorder tend to have a great deal of anxiety, which can lead them to be somewhat controlling, especially in their relationships or towards their children and their spouse. And also it can cause them to be very manipulative. Not that I'm justifying or excusing anything. I'm not trying to justify shitty behavior, believe me. But it can cause them to do a lot of things that normal people generally label as shitty behavior. And the thing about bipolar disorder that you have to understand is if you have it, you're going to be in denial that you have it. Not that everyone who gets angry sometimes has bipolar disorder. I mean, everybody gets angry sometimes. But it's very exhausting, like I said. I still get the sensitivity to light and sound. I still get very exhausted sometimes. I still get that feeling like I need to not be out of the house, like I have to stay home and just hide, like I can't deal with being around people. I can't deal with light and sound. I can't deal with being around people and having to interact with them. And that's just how it is. You know, medicated or not, it's just part of who I am. So you could call it environmental, maybe. Maybe if something, you know, in my upbringing, some of the abuse I received from other kids growing up really did impact me to the point where I dread other people because all I've had is negative experiences. That was my formative experience. It was all negative, 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 negative. So, but people with bipolar disorder who do get help, what you need to know is that you need to just be there for them and just be supportive and try to understand where they're coming from, but definitely stand your ground too. You have boundaries, you have rights, not just them. But in a situation, if someone's being abusive, whether it's the bipolar sufferer or it's the spouse of the bipolar sufferer, if there's children involved and there's abuse going on, you know, if it's a complex situation like that where someone's behaving in a manner where they're violent towards others, then you need to get some help for that person and for yourself as well, and get away from that person. Because honestly, people who are mentally ill, kind of like drug addicts, they have to hit rock bottom before they get help and seek out recovery. That's the sad truth. I mean, they have to have that wake-up call, kind of like I did. You know, when I realized that my ex-husband was stopping me from killing myself, I kind of broke down. I kind of realized that, you know, I suddenly, like, you know, snapped out of it and kind of realized, you know what, I've got a daughter I'd be leaving behind. You know, if I were to die in this bathtub, either my roommate or my ex, you know, my at the time husband would have to find me like that. And I realized it's time to get some fucking help. It's time to actually see somebody about this. So, but most people don't get diagnosed with bipolar disorder until they're in their 20s. It's believed that it's not diagnosable any sooner than that, but I have met some kids and teenagers during my years driving a school bus who claimed they had bipolar disorder, and they would use it to justify acting like a total shit. And I wanted to speak up and say something so bad. I wanted to be like, hon, you are not bipolar, you're just an asshole. You're a little cunt. Get over yourself. Quit lying to people. You're not crazy, you're just an asshole and you don't know how to act and you will just treat other people like shit. You want everything to be about you. You. You know, you're not bipolar. You're just an asshole. Period. So, yeah. If only these kids knew what educated people and educated adults actually knew. But what really pisses me off is when people throw around the words bipolar disorder. They try to use it as an insult. What are you, bipolar? Like, you know what? Everyone's allowed to get angry. People who say that say it to devalue someone's feelings or emotions, to totally just wipe away whatever respect you are owed. You know, if you're owed respect and you're owed attention for whatever it is you're trying to say, whatever you're angry about, whatever you're upset about, whatever's troubling you, and you reach a point where the other person's not listening, and you lose your temper a little bit, and they say, what are you, bipolar? They're just devaluing you. They're trying to make it look as though the problem is all yours and they have done nothing wrong. So I really hate when people do that. I really hate hearing people talk that way. You know, or people even like the memes on Facebook, like, oh, it's snowing today, but yesterday it was 70 degrees outside. Ha ha, the weather's bipolar. Ha ha ha. Like, no, it's not funny. I don't find it funny that you're comparing weather to an actual mental illness that causes people a great deal of pain and suffering. You know, if only people knew what I knew. I feel like that sometimes. If only they knew. If only they knew. But, oh, and it is hereditary. It runs in families. I have at least one relative that I know of that has it. I'm pretty sure more relatives of mine have it, just based on what I've kind of noticed about them. And I don't know if they've sought help for it or not. I don't know. It's not my place to ask. I'm just going to leave it alone. So, yeah. It is hereditary. It does run in families. So, anyway, I can't think of anything else to say, really. Oh, one thing that I did forget to mention that is actually rather important is the phases that a person with bipolar disorder goes through when it comes to their emotions and their overall levels of energy. When a bipolar person seems as though they're lashing out at others, they're really irritable, and they have a ton of energy, and they're awake during the night, they're having trouble sleeping, and they're having a lot of mood swings, they're having their manic phase, which is basically a phase that sometimes is triggered when they get really excited about something and suddenly feel really motivated, and like they get this like surge of energy, and it can last days, it can last weeks. They'll have trouble sleeping at night. They'll be really hyper focused on something. They'll start a bunch of projects, maybe like around the house, or they'll, you know, have several days where they want to go shopping and spend a ton of money. They tend to be a little more impulsive. They tend to eat more. They tend to lash out more because they are very irritable during this time when they're manic. Because anybody who tries to talk them down from something that they want to do, in their mind, that person's just trying to stand in their way and hinder them from achieving their goals. So then, usually after the manic phase, they'll kind of crash, they'll come down and enter a depressive phase where they're tired, they're moody, really low energy, sad, lots of like crying and whatnot, maybe sleeping a lot. So talking about suicide, maybe. So those are the two phases that are experienced. And of course they do have normal phases in between sometimes. Personally, before I was medicated and I would get manic, I would be very productive. Actually, and a lot of people who are bipolar who are medicated will often say that they miss their spells of mania. It's just because of all that they could achieve in such a short period of time. For instance, I painted the inside of an entire house in like less than 3 days once when I was manic with no help from anybody. I just did it, and it was, you know, I was so proud of myself. And one time I stayed up like pretty much all night for a few nights in a row, actually, making artwork and making beaded jewelry and then selling it online. So there's that. But so there's a part of me that misses it, but then there's a part of me that realizes that when I was like that, I was very irritable, I was very grouchy, I did lash out at people, and I don't want to go back to that. So yeah, but anyway, that's really all I have to say in this video. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I hope that it was informative. I hope that you gained some kind of understanding from everything that I've said. If you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you later.